Green Day returns with a new album, reuniting with American Idiot producer Rob Cavallo. But is it a return to form? Stay with us to find out. Welcome, friends, to the 3324 podcast. So glad to have you with us. If you're new, welcome to this wonderland, this landscape of music and movie goodness that Eric and I curate. What's the matter? What?
I like when he goes off on these little tangents, like Wonderland, and like we're in Willy Wonka, and
you know what? If you're, you know what? I like that analogy, Eric, because if you're into music and movies, this is that. This is like going into Wonka's factory. Because
True that.
We've got everything that you could want. We've got old movies, new movies, weird stuff, along with the music too. So we invite you to go ahead and check everything out and browse the aisles. Browse on our podcast. Browsing is free. We don't charge. Browsing is free. We will never charge you to look. We probably won't ever charge you for the episodes either. But the point is there's a lot to check out. And here's another new release album that we're doing.
Yeah.
We're doing Green Day. I kind of missed it. Usually we do these when we do a new release. We do it like the week after it comes out, but this one kind of slid by me for some reason. And then I'm like, Eric, there's a new Green Day album out.
Yeah.
Like, you want to do it? He's like, yeah.
And this one's catching a lot more attention than the last couple. It seems like they're pushing this one a little bit harder than the Father of All and the one predating it. I think it's called Rebel Radio.
Father of All Motherfuckers, it's called.
That's the one, yes.
Yeah. Father of All Motherfuckers was the last one. I'll say it. Or if you're not,
I don't know if I
watching
could,
on YouTube,
I didn't know if this is a G-rated thing. So.
You can. It's fine.
Okay.
We're saying it's the title of something. So, and you know what? We're pretty free and loose with the Fs anyway recently. Okay. But if you're watching on YouTube, you'll see that our guest is already there, Mr. Christopher Clark. Welcome aboard for this episode. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us.
So what is this, number 4?
Number 4.
It's like number 450, it feels like.
My wife's lucky number 4.
Number 4. Well, welcome. If you're watching us on YouTube, go ahead and give us a like. Go ahead and subscribe. That helps our get us put up in YouTube search results. And then also leave a comment. Did you like this Green Day album? Is it a return to form? Or what did you think about our take on it? So go ahead and comment there. We'd love to interact with you on YouTube. So, but first thing is like and subscribe. That helps us out. So yeah, we're talking about the new Green Day album called Saviors. Let's get into the stats. There's some stats we've got already because we were a week behind it. This was released on January 19th of 2024, produced by Rob Cavallo and Green Day. There were 5 singles released in the run-up to this album, believe it or not. The American Dream is Killing Me, Look Ma, No Brains, Dilemma, One-Eyed Bastard, and Bobby Socks. Now, you think that, 5 singles is a lot, while the album has 15 tracks. So it's a decent sampling, but there's still a lot of meat left on the bone. It's not like they gave you the whole album.
It's also
it actually debuted at number 4.
I was going to say it's becoming the norm. It's becoming the norm now too to release that many tracks on like social media and like Spotify and all that stuff leading up to the release of a record. So it's kind of the norm.
Exactly. And you make a good point because that's the nature of the music business nowadays too, is kind of people don't wait for the album to come out. People stream stuff. So it's just, it's easier just to kind of put it out there. You don't have to give it to radio stations if you don't want to. You could just release it yourself.
Yep.
Wow. So this because of that, this debuted at number 4 on the Billboard charts. So it made, I don't know where it is right now, but it debuted at number 4. All lyrics by Billy Joe Armstrong, all music by Green Day. And I don't know if I mentioned this in the American Idiot episode, but we'll just throw it out there. They were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2015, Green Day. So
they were.
I probably went over that the last time, I'm sure. But if you haven't listened to the American Idiot episode, you just got some new information.
By all means, please do.
For people that have heard this before, that was a re-education. For people that this is new, that you just got some new information. So, brief history: the Green Day is reuniting with Rob Cavallo after about 10 years. He was the mastermind producer behind American Idiot, and then their follow-up album. And again, like around 2014, they kind of started going off in different ways. The album was recorded in London and Los Angeles. The initial title for the album was going to be called 1972, and that's the way they originally had started to promote it. That's because all three members were born in 1972.
Look at that.
Yep. And then
I sense a pattern, but we'll get to that. Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, the last one is just a little inside baseball for Eric and I. Rob Cavallo co-produced "Say You Will," Fleetwood Mac's last studio album.
He did indeed. Yeah.
He was the co-producer. So, yeah. If he could deal with Lindsey Buckingham and that, you know what?
I can't imagine.
You know what? Dealing with Lindsey Buckingham got him ready for Green Day. Got him ready for like punk music. So, so that's Rob Cavallo is almost like a kind of like an Andrew Watt-ish kind of guy, right? He's kind of does a lot of different things, a lot of different artists that he works with.
Yep.
Yeah. He worked with Phil Collins on his Testify with the album tanked, but there it is nonetheless. I mean,
and that was 2002, right? That was 2002. Yeah. So,
and he did work with My Chemical Romance. Was he the producer on Black? I think he was a producer on Black Parade, which is like
Welcome to the Black Parade.
Yeah, which is to me like a masterpiece of it. It's like a modern rock opera masterpiece, like in the vein of like not the same style of music, but to me is as good as like The Wall or any of those or Tommy and that kind of thing.
Emo. It's an emo rock opera. Could it be called?
Yep. So, yeah, I would definitely.
Right, Chris?
I mean, to me,
so well-rounded producer. He's with an eclectic array of artists. So
very much so.
But so all right, so I have a question right out the gate for you guys. Well, I guess we should just jump in and give our let's just give our opinion. I guess we start there, or let's do that.
We've done that in the past since you opened it up. Go ahead. What's your opinion?
I think I like it. It's but I'm the question I'm asking. And this is where the pattern thing comes into play. Is I just got tickets to see them.
Oh, really?
In July.
Oh, wow!
For my son, and we wanted to give it to him for Christmas, but that didn't work out. So, but we got lucky and we managed to get seats. But they're promoting their current tour. Because 2 anniversaries, you got Dookie, which is from '94, and then you have American Idiot. So they're going to be playing both albums
in their entirety.
In their entirety.
Yep.
There's no talk of this album. There's no mention of a brand new album in that promotion.
Yep.
Now, my question is, do you think that this album was recorded with Rob Cavallo in this fashion? Because I find a lot. I feel like this album is a combination of both. Of both. American Idiot has elements of both. I think. Do you agree with that?
I definitely do. To me, like the way I kept coming back to it is, to me, it's almost like a kitchen sink Green Day record. Like I feel like it has all of the things that they do really well. Like you've got the political punk rock songs. You've got some really cool ballads. You've got and then you've got some of the garage rock stuff that they've been doing as of late. The last record had a lot of that influence. Billy Joe did a whole record of like pop songs, right? So to me, it's got a little bit of everything, but I also is very much hearkening back to what made them what they were and what they've been to a lot of people. So I think there's part of it is that they're trying to make it fit with American Idiot and Dookie, but I also think because the last album got slammed so bad, like a lot, I mean, not that it did, a lot of people looked at it as like mediocre or weak because it wasn't the typical Green Day record. And I feel like now they're trying to get those people who walked away from Father of All Motherfuckers. They're trying to bring them back with Saviors to a degree.
Okay.
Yeah. I was reading in reading about Saviors. I was reading about, how disappointing the sales were for the previous album and how it was kind of a miss. And I kind of today went back, I went and listened to some of it, and it does sound very different, especially the first few songs. If you listen to the first few songs on that album, you might be like, wow, okay, what's going on with Green Day? Because it is very different. I mean, they start to kind of get into a groove, later into the album, but it also does have a different sound. I think Rob Cavallo, brings what I've noticed, just in contrasting these two albums, Rob Cavallo brings that bigger sound, that big Green Day American Idiot sound.
Yeah.
Like that's what I picked up most on Saviors, is that heavier, thicker guitar sound.
Right.
That was kind of, I didn't hear it on the previous album. The guitars were there, but there's something about Rob Cavallo, what he does with them, that it's got this denser, heavier, more like rock sound, less punk. Like punk is kind of usually like a little more trebly, a little more tinny, a little more thinner guitar sound. And this is definitely the bombastic sound of American Idiot. Would you guys agree?
That even goes
more,
back,
it's like, yeah.
That even goes back to like when he first worked with them on Dookie. Like if you listen to like the record before, like if you listen to Kerplunk and then listen to Dookie, they're almost like twin records to a degree, but but Dookie has what Dean's saying, like that fuller sound, and the guitars are a little bit more up front and in your face. So that's definitely one of the hallmarks of his production style. Even when they're pretty much working in the same vein, you could tell the difference when he's not there.
Yeah, absolutely. That was what I picked up on.
Yeah, I agree. More Anthem, sort of like the bigger, in big hall sound. Like that, just because guitars are. Yeah. So but I just found it interesting that and I asked my son about it because he's a bigger. I'm not the world's greatest Green Day fan. I mean, I don't know the nuances per se. I don't know all their albums. When we did American Idiot, I just happened to listen. I listened to Dookie. I knew that album, and I listened to the album directly after that one, just to sort of get the contrast, But as far as like some of their other stuff, so I pretty much only know Dookie and American Idiot. So for me, I mean, there was a lot of that on this record. I felt like, is this on purpose? Yeah, I wonder if they're because of the anniversary thing, are they really kind of playing up on that? They're celebrating arguably the two of their greatest albums that that they made, with their most popular. Would that's the thing, isn't it? I mean, I know Nimrod was very popular as well, but I feel like those two albums are the ones that everybody
put them on the map.
Exactly.
Yeah, those are their high water. I guess it comes down to this question then, because both of those albums, and because of Green Day is a punk pop band or a punk band with rock, however you want to categorize them. I think the question we need to ask in 2024 is, does Green Day still have something to say? Right? Because that's what punk music is kind of about. Outside of the Ramones, who the Ramones is kind of like good time, fun party punk.
Right. Yeah.
Green Day always had some kind of axe to grind. Right? There was always some type of some darker things going on underneath. Even in Dookie, even in the lyrics. Of course, American Idiot was very cynical. And that's what made it so popular. It was kind of a diatribe against the Bush presidency and everything that was going on. So, they open up, the opening song is "The American Dream Is Killing Me," which could be a direct sequel to American Idiot. In its
right. I agree. Yeah. Callback.
It's almost it's almost like an updated version for 20 years later, Chris. Is that,
I definitely do.
Am I on the right track with that?
I definitely do.
Still having something out there to say?
I definitely do. And I definitely think that Billy Joe feels like he has something to say, but I've also talked to friends of mine who feel like, how can we take this seriously from a wealthy rock star who's not a teenage punk rocker anymore? So like, is it really as believable coming from him? I mean, I think he really means it. And I definitely think he feels like he has something to say. Whether or not people are listening is the question. Like, are people still listening to him as a 52-year-old rich rock star?
You could still be older. Yeah, but you could you could still be older, right? And still have opinions about things and still be dissatisfied. I mean, he's got money and fame, but that doesn't mean he's not dissatisfied with the state of affairs in the world, or how things are going, or what society's doing. That, him having money and fame is separate from those. He's not complaining about money, and he's not complaining about that kind of stuff. The stuff that he's writing about is more societal, right?
But lyrically, sure, but musically, by doing it and calling and referring back to what they were and creating that sound again, like, I can understand people might say like, are they still relevant in their overall sound? And, because it's like, I kind of understand where Chris is coming from. I agree with your statement as far as like, some people might not take that as seriously.
And I don't necessarily
because they're still trying to sound the same, but they're lyrically, I think he might be doing something from the perspective of a 52-year-old. Right. But on the other hand, like musically, they're trying to stay young and trying to be vibrant and matter and still matter in that vein. Are they still relevant? Is the question, I suppose,
And I'm not the one saying that, like, I don't necessarily feel that way, but I know people from my age group who grew up with them.
Right.
They've kind of, I remember having this one specific conversation with a friend of mine where that came up. For me, lyrically, the songs that stuck out to me weren't necessarily, on this record anyway, weren't necessarily the ones that, were political, but more of like the ones that were talking more about like, emotional, or like the things that you deal with as you hit middle age. Like the one that really struck me, and I actually went and looked up the lyrics because it hit me so hard while I was listening to it, was Father to a Son. Because as being a parent of 2 kids, son and daughter, I felt all those things. Like all the things that are in that song are things that at some point you as a parent feel. So those are the lyrics, I think, that to me connect more than maybe necessarily his political point of view. Like, but I think that's how I am as a listener.
Oh, sure. Absolutely.
Any kind of music anyway, but
full disclosure, that was the first track I listened to. That's because I saw the title. I'm like, I gotta hear this. Because I knew it was going to be a quieter song, more of a, sort of a ballad kind of thing. And I was right on point, but how could it not be? You know what I mean? Yeah. Like that's the thing, But I find it interesting too that there's I think it's Susie Chapstick, where he's talking about like, oh, do you want to go out with me? He's like speaking as if he were a younger kid.
Bobby Sox.
Is that the one?
You want to be my girlfriend? Do you want to be my boyfriend?
That's the one I'm talking about. Yeah.
Bobby Sox.
So I think he is speaking from a more youthful standpoint there. So it's kind of that's kind of odd.
Well, it could be looking back again. It's just it could also be that whole looking back thing again. It's just because you're older doesn't mean you can't explore those subjects again and explore that material. I think that's the thing is we. Like we talked about with Hackney Diamonds, right? I was making fun of Mick Jagger. I'm like, what's this 80-year-old guy doing complaining about not getting laid, right? I'm like, I think you've aged out of that. But you know what? If that's what they're writing about, and that's kind of, we're going to go along on the trip for it. I wasn't, a couple of things. First of all, Father to a Son is the slowest song on the album. And it doesn't come, there's 15 songs on the album. It's the 13th song. So there are 12 other songs of just blistering, driving punk rock style music that before you get to Father to a Son is like, that's where the album takes a breather, is almost at the end of it.
Yeah, true.
It's kind of like as far as track listing goes, because I'm listening to this album, I'm like, and then Father to a Son comes on, I'm like, oh, okay. They did exhale finally, like just kind of pounding. Now, Chris, Eric said he liked it. What was your opinion? Don't give us a grade yet, but what did you
of the album?
Like this album? What was your first opinion of it? First blush.
So before you emailed me, I knew they had a new record out, and one of the biggest challenges when I take road trips with my family is trying to find a record that we can all listen to. And we all like Green Day. So I said, okay, so this is the one I'm going to put on. I got up to Bobby Sox, and my wife looked at me and went, isn't he 50 years old? Boy, and like the boyfriend girlfriend thing turned her off. So I said, you know what, you're right. And nothing really grabbed me. So I turned it off, and I was like, this is going to be lame. And I didn't listen to it anymore. Then you emailed me, and I was going to email you back and say, I just fair warning, I'm probably going to be the contrarian. And then I said, you know what? No, I'm going to listen to this record and I'm going to make my opinions. And then the more I listened to it, the more I liked it. With every spin, it grew. It was for me, and which was surprising to me, because like punk rock like that, it's usually like I like it and I dig it and I move on. But like with every spin, I liked it a little bit more. Yeah. And the thing that struck me about it was where it really picked up for me, and the songs that I keep coming back to and saying, these are the songs I'm going to listen to again. Corvette Summer Forward. For some reason, to me, the album gets better.
Yep. I got Corvette Summer is written down as one of my favorites as well.
And I don't understand why that wasn't one of the singles.
I don't know. I kind of like the run up to it. I mean, everything on here is listenable. I didn't get.
Oh yeah, it's all good.
I didn't get turned off or question like the whole lyrics of Bobby Sox about "Will you be my girlfriend?" Like I wasn't
just
taken out by it.
You know,
I was kind of just kind of go through it. You know, "One Eye Bastard" is another song I like. "Dilemma." I mean, there's a lot of good stuff in the run up. But once you get to Corvette Summer, yeah, I wrote that down as loving it, living in the 20s. Oddly enough, this is how detached from reality I am. When I saw the when I saw the title "Living in the 20s," I thought they were talking about the 1920s. I forgot that we're in the 2020. I'm so stupid. But I'm like, wait, he's talking about now because he mentions TikTok in the lyrics, and I'm like, how stupid can you be? Why would he be writing about the 1920s? I'm like, we're in the 20s. We're in the 20s now. That's how detached from reality I am in my corner of the universe back here. But it's still a good song.
The other
I just think, you know, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Chris.
No. Go ahead, man. No, you go. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, like, I don't find it lame that, you know, that he's referring to those things. I just think it makes you think. It makes you. People have commented and they said that it had to take a couple listens for them to really get into it. So there's a lot of I saw some of the people commenting on in the chat rooms and things like that on YouTube and things. And so yeah, they might have had the same reaction to it in that sense. You know, I didn't hear anything about age or anything like that, but perhaps that could be, just the fact that it's still, should they be doing something new at this point in their career? Is that it begs the question. Mm-hmm. So when you get to a song like Bobby Sox, it's like, yeah, it is kind of odd that they're, talking about such things, but on the other hand, it's like, why not try to, as Dean pointed out, why not try to stay young? Why not try to talk about love and
it could be a throwback. Sure. Yeah, it could be a throwback song.
You could be a 52-year-old man and like, perhaps you're maybe you got divorced or perhaps or you lost your partner, and perhaps you're like on the dating scene again, and so
absolutely. They've been notoriously derided a lot of times for stealing licks from other people. They've actually been accused of stealing from ELO, oddly enough, with their song 21 Guns. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Which track it supposedly sounds like they supposedly took some of the melody from Telephone Line.
Oh, really?
They did it again on this album. The song "One Eye Bastard,"
Pink.
So What by Pink.
Oh,
that's true. I'm
like, okay, key. It's in a lower key.
But they stole. They stole again. Shoplifting alert. Alert.
When they get to the verse, it's different, of course, because she sings it. She goes on.
But that lick is there.
The lick is there, but it's
I didn't even think
unmistakable. You can't. Yeah.
Yep.
So
I totally heard that. I'm like, oh, there. I'm like, there's Pink. So what? But you know what? Again, it's okay. It's there's nothing new in music anyway. But the thing I like about about this album, which hits my pop sensibilities, my opinion is, I dug this. I really like this album. I really dug it a lot because it hits my pop sensibilities that these songs are 3 minutes. They get. I love songs that give you the idea. They get in and they get out, and they're catchy. And that's the thing on all. Some of it might sound a little redundant on this album. We may have heard some melodic copying from previous stuff, but it's okay. They roll through so many different songs, and they give you so many different looks that if they drug it out for 6 minutes, I'd be like, okay, now this is just getting redundant. But the great thing about punk music and the great thing about how Green Day does it is it's always interesting. But on this album, you get in and you get out, and I love that. And the other thing that I wrote down I think that now separates Green Day from either old Green Day, even Dookie era Green Day, or earlier, and other punk rock, is Tré Cool, the drummer.
Oh my God, I was going to say that.
On this album, Yeah, I really noticed like how important what he does, what he brings to Green Day, because usually with punk rock, it's just kind of bum, 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 you know, that kind of stuff. But Tré Cool is throwing in some rock, some fills that you would hear in rock songs in these shorter songs, in these punk songs, and that's kind of elevating the material. Also, I think that's what's kind of you know, bringing it up a little, Chris, right?
I think so. I mean, to me, he's always been one of the standouts of the band, going back to when
you think so, Chris?
100%. Like, and he's like the Neil Peart of punk rock. He wasn't on their first record, and I've been with them ever since.
Like,
to me, he's an amazing drummer. I said he's like the Neil Peart of punk rock, because he wasn't on their first album, then he was on every one since, and he's always been one of the standouts of the band to me. So I think he's a phenomenal drummer, and he definitely is very much influenced by, you know, the greats. And the interesting is he was on Howard Stern recently, and he referenced Ringo as probably one of his favorite drummers of all time. Like that's where a lot of his sensibility comes from, apparently. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, and it's very easy to be a shitty drummer in a punk rock band, right? It's more attitude. It's like, you know, reference the Ramones. It's about attitude. It's about swagger. It's about all that kind of stuff, right? You know, so you know, in listening to this album, I really kind of was like, oh wow, like Tré Cool kind of really brings something a little extra to it that kind of enhances it, and brings it a little bit out of the straight ahead grungy kind of dirty punk rock and brings it into maybe that's where that rock hybrid comes in, Eric. Like, I think that's a little bit more, you know, with that and Rob Cavallo's production, I think kind of brings this out of that. I was just
about to say that. Yeah, the way his drums are mic'd. I especially like the snare sound. Very, I wouldn't say it cracks or it's a crisp sound. It's like, it's sort of a really nice thump.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but it's you know, but I love that. I love that of the way that sounds, and I think you hear a lot of that on his production. You know, he always tends to like, it's very
Mm-hmm. It's very kind of, you know, booming, or it's an interesting sound that he gets. It's not now that I think about it, because he does
very
a lot
close to the chest, very in the room, sort of like right there, you know. So
that's thank you that you leave it to the drummer to explain it to the non-drummer and make him understand it. That's, you know. How about this? Another question, you know, and they may get lost in the conversation. Green Day, are they among the best trios in rock music? You know, you never hear them in the conversation. You hear Rush, you hear the Police, you hear, you know.
Yeah, that's
so. But how does Green Day fit in? Where do they fit in?
They haven't really been a trio since 2004.
I couldn't answer that question, because I'm, like I said, I don't know.
For you.
Well, for me,
well, technically, but you know, they are, but they aren't, right? They kind of, you know,
they got a guy.
They have some additional musicians. You know, you'll only ever see the three of them on the cover. It's always going to be Green Day.
Yeah.
Well, even it's funny you mentioned that, because I was looking at the credits of this record, and there's like, it's the three of them, Rob Cavallo, producer, but then you got this whole list of like engineers, like assistant engineer, like there's like maybe 10 or 12 different people like engineering this record, which is kind of odd. But I suppose they, for their generation, you know, there really weren't that many trio. So no. I would say I never really, you're right. I never really heard them being compared to like the Police or
them and Blink-182,
Blink-182, Cream or any of these.
They're just, okay. Yeah, but do you think, I mean, if you're going to, Chris, if you're going to put Blink-182 and Green Day against each other, it's got to be Green Day hands down.
Well, the interesting thing is they both just put out new records, and my brother is a huge Blink-182 fan. And he liked the record until he discovered that it disappointed him that Blink-182 didn't write all the music on their own. Whereas Green Day is still very much, at least, I mean, a lot of people worked on the record, but at least all the writing is still done in-house and stuff. So kind of speaks to who they are as a band. But
Billy Joe Armstrong is still writing the lyrics. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
They're still writing the lyrics and they're still writing the music. So
yeah, but I mean, to me, I like in my generation, there was nobody more popular as far as the band was concerned. Like when I came into high school, it was actually uncool to like Green Day because they were so popular. So I mean, to me, that speaks to how many people they appeal to. So I think for my generation, they were probably as big as the Police were 10 years previous to that. So I definitely think they should be in that conversation.
Yeah, there was that backlash against Green Day when they got popular. It's like, they're not really a punk band wouldn't partake in that popularity. They would shun it and this, that, and the other thing. And it's like, well, whatever. But I think you're right for that generation and that era of music. Yeah, I think you could say Green Day is the representative trio, much like the Police were in the 80s as a representative trio, and you could say Rush was in the 70s or ELP or anything. But yeah, I think Green Day deserves to. I think ZZ Top. I think Green Day deserves to be in that conversation.
And they're still together, so I mean, you can't say.
And Billy Joe Armstrong looks great. I don't know if he's getting surgery or what, but he still looks young.
And much like all those other bands,
of course,
and much like all those other bands, people still listen to them. Like my kids still listen to Green Day, and like will request Green Day in the car, and like so those kinds of things. Like they've been around 30 some odd years.
My youngest son. I mean, he American Idiot's his all-time favorite album.
Yeah.
And that's also my oldest son's one of his top 5 favorite albums of all time. So it's like, they're both competing as to what, oh, no, it's my favorite. No, it's my favorite, but it just goes to show. I mean, they had that appeal. So
and they had that impact. Yeah. They had, so, like we talked about on the American Idiot episode. I mean, they kind of, definitely put out something that was for the ages. That album, and I don't think, Blink-182 didn't really have that. Like they never ascended to that kind of apex in their career.
Yeah. And was huge, but I don't know if it was American Idiot huge.
We spoke a lot about like with American Idiot too. Like Dean and I have always, we talked about the 90s and how, there's quite a lot of music that kind of just sort of,
yeah, you don't listen
we
to
weren't
anymore.
really actively listening to a lot of 90s music at the time, because, I don't know what it was about the 90s, that decade, but perhaps it was just a shitty decade for us. I don't know, whatever. But we both agreed that there was a lot of stuff that we kind of glossed over or just didn't. And Green Day is just one of those bands. I knew of them. I just really hadn't heard a whole lot, and it didn't take. And when I met some people who were a little bit younger than me that were really into them, and it kind of turned me on to American Idiot, and we did the episode. And that was actually the very first time I actually listened to the entire album all the way through, in one listen, couple listens, just to get the gist. And it's an amazing record. Where the fuck was I? Like, it's just one of those things. But the thing that really kind of brought it to the table for me was this notion of a generational thing, him talking about rock opera. So of course I'm a big Who fan. So that kind of came into the conversation. So it's like they had, at least they share, there's that DNA there that for me, it's about that. It's about influence and where, some of the stuff, the ideas flow and that kind of thing. So yeah, so I feel like I'm not totally out of the loop. You know what I mean? So there's something there to that I could talk to my kids about and say, hey, yeah, you know what? You like Green Day, I like the Who. Let's compare notes here, like that kind of thing. So it's always a great, that always makes for a great sort of bonding moment, so
absolutely
you check out this, you check out this. Yeah. So yeah, that's music,
and then you put on Father to a Son and you got the whole complete,
there you go. There you go.
You finish it, and then you guys go out and you get some burgers and fries, and it's you got it. I think this is kind of a return, right, Chris? I think it's kind of a return to form.
I definitely do, and what I like about it too is that it's definitely got a lot of the classic Green Day sound, but I also think there's a lot of his influence a lot of their influences that you typically wouldn't have heard on like some of the earlier Green Day stuff, like some of that like big 80s rock sound, like with a song like Corvette Summer, or like you hear like the influences of like him as a kid listening to early Motley Crue and Van Halen, and some of that stuff is there present in terms of the songwriting and the big hooks and, you know, some of that stuff. So it's cool that a lot of that stuff is a little bit more prevalent while still retaining that punk rock feel that you had in old school Green Day too.
Yeah, and that's the kind of the beauty of aging though too, right? Because when you're young and you're in Green Day, you're angry, you're playing your punk rock, and you're almost kind of disavowing your influences because you're, you know, embracing something else, right?
Right. Yep.
And it's only as you get older and you kind of start to look back and you kind of, not that you soften a little bit, but you're kind of open to a little bit more, or you kind of take that time to revisit your influences and kind of let them seep in now because you've gotten all that anger out, that young angst, you know, that in your 20s and all that, you know, all the rebellion. You can still be angry and still be concerned about social issues and that kind of stuff. But yeah, allowing those influences now, Chris, to kind of creep in and kind of color the music just a little bit where you're not ripping it off, but you kind of get the feeling.
And then some of the more lyrics that deal more with human emotion, that's really where you see his influence from a guy like Paul Westerberg, the lead singer and songwriter for the Replacements.
Waterboys?
Like you see some of that as well.
Oh, Replacements, not Waterboys.
Okay.
Yep. Amazing band. If you have, if
I think it pays off.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Pleased to meet me. Right? Is there? Is that their debut?
Let It Be is a masterpiece. And Tim and Let It Be are the two that everybody should check out. Those are amazing records.
Yeah. Yeah. And I like this 20 years later Green Day version of them. Cause you know, they still sound great. You know, like I said, if you go listen to the album before this, it is kind of strange. When I was listening, I'm like, wow, they were really going for something different. So I don't think they got scared because they're Green Day. They've been around forever. They can kind of do what they want, and they do, and they largely do what they want. They kind of, you know, thumb their nose at whatever they want to put out. It, you know, they put out the Uno Dos Tres thing with the 3 albums all like a month apart. So they kind of play on their own terms. So I don't think they got scared and said, "Oh, we're going to go. You know, we have to go make an album that sounds like American Idiot." I just think it was another evolution that they kind of passed through, and then reconnecting with Rob Cavallo, and maybe rediscovering that sound. You know, after you know, however you know, when the 2014, whenever they worked with him, I think it's more that and less like, oh, we're trying to recapture. I think they do recapture it, but I don't think they were trying to. I just think that's kind of the nature, you know, the mature song, you know, and it's even more mature now. I think, you know, I'm surprised that 20 years ago they were mature enough to come out with something like American Idiot. You know, that's almost something that would have come out now by elder statesmen, punk rockers that would have put out this statement. You know, not 20 years earlier, and this kind of is a nice kind of companion piece to it.
And typically, something like that would be the beginning of the end for that band, right? For a band like, you know, to come out with something so, because they can never come back from that, you know what I mean? So then it becomes a big thing, and then they get accused of selling out because it's a Broadway show and it's this and it's that, and it's like all of a sudden there's big success on that, and certainly I think there was some, you know, critique as far as that goes as well, but
But they've weathered.
They did weather it
on their own terms.
And I think I agree with you, Dan. I think you know, like, and certainly not the first band to try to go back to form, to, you know, to try to recapture what they had. And some people are successful at it. Some people are just not. They're just, you know.
And I mean,
a pathetic attempt to, you know, to kind of, So
and to Dean's
but in
point,
this case, I think it works. Yeah.
And to Dean's point, Billy Joe, I listened to him be interviewed by Mark Maron. I listened to a couple of clips from when Howard Stern interviewed him, and he keeps coming. And then I read an article too, and he keeps coming back to the father of all motherfuckers, talking about how, like, it really didn't get a chance. It got lost in the sauce because of COVID. They were supposed to tour it and they couldn't tour it. And then he dropped like a couple of tracks that he says are really important to him that he's trying to now drop into their set lists and stuff. And so I don't think he's distancing himself from Father of All Motherfuckers as much as one might think. I think Dean makes a really good point.
Yeah. It's just another evolution, right? And yeah, we can probably draw a parallel between this and Hackney Diamonds, right? Because we kind of said how the Stones were able to recapture their kind of classic sound without aping, the exact phrasing. But when you listen to it, it's comfort. Like you listen to Hackney Diamonds, and it's very comfortable because it sounds like the Stones. And I think for me, putting this album on, I was like, yeah, okay, this sounds like Green Day. Like, this wasn't a stretch. Had we done the album before, yeah, I might have been like, whoa, okay, what is going on? But this album hits at the, for those fans that love American Idiot in that era, this hits in the right place. That it is throwbacky in that way, but I don't think they did it out of desperation. I just think this is just the natural progression, is to kind of revisit. They've cycled through a whole bunch of different producers and different things. And it's kind of like, okay, let's connect with Rob again, and Rob Cavallo brings that sound with him that's his Green Day, probably default board setup for them, unless they want to do something else. Cause that's what they're hiring for.
Well, it'll certainly be interesting to see what happens after, if they have a plan for another record after this one. That would probably be.
It'll probably be different. It'll probably be something different again. Knowing Green Day.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how many cuts. I'm curious to see how many cuts they play on.
They play live.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's if they're gonna do. I don't know if they're gonna alternate doing Dookie one night, maybe American Idiot another. I don't know if they're going to play both in the same show.
My understanding is they were doing both
in the same show.
You're getting that's going to
be a fucking long show, and they have other bands on the bill, like the Pumpkins and yeah.
You might get a couple of. Between Dookie and American Idiot, you're getting most of what people want to hear anyway. Sure. And then they could probably throw it, to Chris's point, throw in maybe 3 or 4, like a little mini set of just some, maybe 1 or 2 older songs and maybe 2 new songs to throw in.
And that'll be the thing. It's like some people may not know the difference. Like they'll like people like myself who are not up on every song and every, so when they play the new stuff with the other two, like those 2 albums, it's going to be interesting to see how similar they sound. Are they going to pick the right, cuts from this record to kind of, for that'll be the show, like the anniversary show, like they'll pick the cuts that sound like both those records. So it's almost like seamless in a way, almost could be like extra tracks from like both of those records, and I know the re-release of Dookie has quite a bit of,
a lot of demos,
extra tracks on it as well. So, it's going to be interesting. So,
and that's true. How long of a set you make a good point too. How long of a set are they going to have? Because you got to give the Pumpkins at least an hour and a half, and then you got to give them an hour and a half. And Rancid, though an opener, is still fairly popular, so you figure they're going to play at least 45. So like, can they even really do? After you do Dookie and American Idiot, you really don't have any place left to go. Can you really come out and do a couple of tracks from this record?
Yeah, they haven't really played any full concerts yet. They did play Irving Plaza on January 18th, and the set list was 26 songs. I'm looking at it right now, but it's all mixed in. But there's a lot of the new stuff. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, like 6 songs from the new album. But that, again, that's not indicative. Irving Plaza is like a very small venue, so it's probably like a warm-up show. Not indicative of what they'll do. But my understanding was it was Dookie and American Idiot, not one or the other. But I could be wrong. If what are you hoping for, Eric? If it's one or the other?
If they're going to play both, let's do it. Let's go.
But if you're getting one, what would your preference be?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know. Probably American Idiot, because it's the one I know more. But Dookie is great too. But either way, I'm looking for a good show.
All right. Chris, Chris, if it was one or the other, not both, which one would you like to hear them do live?
honestly, by the time 2004 rolled around, I kind of fell off of Green Day a little bit. So I don't know American Idiot quite as well as I know Dookie. So I would rather see them do like Dookie, and then like and honestly, my favorite Green Day album of all time probably is the one before Dookie. And I know that makes me sound like an elitist, but I really love Kerplunk. So I would love to see them do Dookie and maybe throw in some stuff from Kerplunk.
Kerplunk. There you go. Well, I mean, they have, you know, this is like their 15th or 16th album, so they've got the discography behind them now.
They really do.
Which does test it, which is a testament to their staying power, no matter what they've done. And you know, and we've seen fortunes fall, and you know, but this debuted at number 4, so it was selling. You know, it's so annoying because I was reading about the sales, and how they. Let me just read this for you guys. This is just so annoying. Okay, so this is from Wikipedia about the sales, right? Commercial performance. Saviors debuted at number 4 in the Billboard Top 200 with 49,000 album equivalent units.
Wow.
No, well, yeah, but 49,000 album equivalent units. So does that mean including 39,000 pure album sales, 9,500 streaming equivalent units, and 500 track equivalent units? So what's an album equivalent unit? Because nowadays, right? Well, I mean, back in the old days, you sold an album or an 8-track or a cassette or a CD and a cassette. Like you had physical sales you could track. Now with streaming, what constitutes a sale? If someone, I mean, I've listened to it like 3 or 4 times. Does that count as album sales? Because they're individual listens?
I forget how many times. There is a specific number of times you have to have in order to be considered a full sale. I'm not sure what it is, but I definitely think it's like the record has to be played so many times, and then it counts as a sale. I don't know what the figures on it are though.
Yeah, so 39,000 pure album sales. That means physical. I'm guessing that was physical media or purchased. You know, if someone purchased the album from Apple, you know, they actually bought it and didn't just stream it, right? Pure album sales. Additionally, 10,390 copies of the album were sold through independent record stores. These sales were not included in the Billboard 200. So the actual physical media, that's what I'm reading.
Weird.
10,000 copies of the album were sold through independent record stores. So that doesn't mean that, you know, if Walmart had it, those sales counted, but the indies didn't count towards the sales. These sales were not included in the Billboard 200.
And that's interesting because didn't they do like a big push with like the indie record stores where they had like listening parties and stuff? So why wouldn't you count those? That's strange.
Sure, they might have. Wow. So Amazon, you know, if you bought it from Amazon or you got it from, you know, Target or whoever had it, that counted towards it, but not the independent retailers who have been like the bread and butter and the lifeblood of the vinyl industry. You know, responsible for the resurgence. But anyway, that's just a weird, you know, that's me showing my age of not understanding now how they track these sales.
It's very
album equivalent and you know, whatever streaming. So bottom line, it debuted at number 4, so it's a certifiable hit. Now let's talk about some of our favorite tracks. Let's kind of why don't we go there? Chris and I, you know, he beat me to it. Corvette Summer for me is I love that's an earworm. That one is an earworm for me. Susie Chapstick. Chris? Do you know who Susie? Do you know what Susie Chapstick?
Do you know? I don't know what it means. Chapstick? No, I have no idea.
Okay, Eric, do you remember Susie Chapstick?
It sounds familiar. I can't.
Remember that commercial in the 70s for Chapstick, and the girl was skiing, and I forget, she was like a professional skier.
Okay.
Susie, they called her Susie. You know, I'm Susie Chapstick. You know,
I remember the commercial. I don't remember. Wow.
Yeah, Susie Chapstick. 1981 is another. I mean, there's a lot to pick from here. There's a lot of stuff here, but 1981 Dilemma. I like a lot of this. I like the album. All Fancy Sauce, the very last song.
That's a great tune.
I dig that as well. Yeah, Chris, what are some of your highlights?
To me, obviously, we talked about Corvette Summer. Strange Days Are Here to Stay. I love that. That's a great tune. You know, the way the drums drop, you know, all the music drops, and they do the acapella in the chorus at the end and all that stuff. It's just like all those cool elements. That's a really great song to me. I like Look Ma No Brains. I really liked. 1981 was good, and yeah, like you said, it's a really listenable album. Like, to me, it's a great car record. It's like one of those albums you pop on in the car and you can just listen to it from beginning to end and crank it up. It's a good album.
That's pretty much the whole time I listened to it was driving. I didn't really listen to it at home as much. Today I actually left my house to go drive around to listen to it. Oddly enough, I don't want to listen to it here. I'm like, let me go in the car. Let me just go for a ride. Let me grab a coffee, go for a ride, and listen to it. And that's what I did. I just kind of listened to the whole, album again, just driving around. So even if you're not cruising, it's just bouncy. It moves, like I said, moving through the songs. It's just kind of, I think they understand the mission. Or whatever the mission statement was, and they kind of execute. Eric, what are some of your toppers?
I like the first track.
Yeah, American Dream is killing me.
1981, I love. And Father to a Son, I really like.
Yeah, that one again. Actually, I forgot about saying that one too.
Sentimental fool that I am. Yeah.
You parents, you have such pushovers, you parents.
Hey, that one really. I should have said that one. That one hit me really hard.
Yeah. I do like Strange Days Are Here to Stay as well. It's
Saviors. There's a lot of good stuff on here.
That one has a different feel. It has a different, vibe to it. But overall, I think it's very easy to listen to this record. You can breeze right through it. And, 15 tracks at 46 minutes. That's not bad.
That's 3 minutes per, 3 and change per. I mean, like I said, they kind of they get in and get out. Like I said, which is always my, which kind of gives me, gets me halfway there. Because like I said, even if the song's a misfire, they're going to be out of it in a little while. And that's one of the beauties of punk is they kind of, it doesn't overstay its welcome. So and that's probably part of the appeal to it of it also is kind of you get these quick hits of quick bursts of music and musical ideas that kind of assault you, which is what this album does too. Like I said, this is no slouch. This is probably even more up tempo than American Idiot was. I mean, American Idiot had its kind of solemn parts and a lot of different movements because it had to be something else. Yeah. This is just kind of pedal to the metal. Like the album starts and like I said, it doesn't stop until Father to a Son. Really, you kind of get one song after another, and which I really dig. So.
And there's nothing really skipped. Like you said, like even if it's bad, it's not going to last long. There's nothing that's really that bad. Like everything is really like you find yourself humming along, and eventually they do become earworms. Like every one of these cuts, you find yourself singing along in some fashion.
Yeah, even if I mean, it usually takes you about a minute before you realize whether or not you like a song. At that point, you got 2 more minutes left, so you just like Chris said, you just kind of stick it out, right? It's kind of all right. Well, it's almost going to be almost over anyway. Yeah. But no, that's I think this was a rousing success for them. So let's go around. Let's do the grades. Let's go ahead and give it a grade. So Chris, what is your letter grade? What would you grade this album? And you can use whatever system you're going to use, grade it on a curve or however you want to do it.
I would probably give it a B+ would be my grade for it. It took me a couple of spins to get into, but in the end, I really did end up enjoying it. I don't think it's on the level of some of their other work, like American Idiot or Dookie or, any of the other ones that I really enjoy, like some of the earlier stuff, but I definitely think it's of a very high quality.
Cool. Eric.
I think I'm going to agree with Chris. I only listened to it like once all the way through. Then I kind of was like skipping through tracks, so I don't know. I think I need to listen to it a little bit more, but I think I'm going to give it a B+ as well.
Okay.
I might like it more. I might not like it more. We'll see. But there you go.
I'm going to go with a straight B+ as well. I think that's a really solid score for this. Because it's like I said, even for us, Eric's not a big Green Day fan. I'm not a huge Green Day fan. I'm certainly well acquainted with their material. I certainly don't listen to every album or anything, but being able to pick up this album and feel immediately comfortable with it, I think goes a long way. Where we've talked about it in other new releases. It's not a struggle. This wasn't a struggle to listen to.
Not at all.
Some albums can be, when they're new and they're trying to get across new ideas. It's like, no, this from the beginning, it had that big sound. So I was already kind of in my headspace. I knew where I was going to be. And then they just kind of rolled through each song, and it just kind of was boom, 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 boom. And I love the sound. The production makes a big difference, I think, for me, because it kind of gives that sound that I'm used to for me, or the sound that I like. I like that American Idiot bombastic sound, that overdriven, that really hyper big and wide guitar sound, not the crunchy kind of, hitting the guitar like a punk rocker one. It's that kind of bigger, like power chordy. Yeah. It's like that power chord sound over like a punk sound. So, like for me, the production helps nail it. Yeah. The production helps nail it. And then the quickness of the songs, getting in and out, and everything's very tuneful. So I think it's a score for Green Day.
And you gotta be careful though. Sometimes I'm not to be downbeat about it, but it's just sort of like. But sometimes when an album is that good, you think it's that great and easy to listen to at first, but then it could wear off. Sometimes some albums do take a couple of tries to kind of get there. But then you end up liking those albums more. So, I mean, for me, it's like I said, it's a very easy listen. Will it hold up is what I'm, so I may, I'll have to listen to it more just to get that, see what that's, but
I think it's an easy revisit. Will it be spinning all the time? No, but I think it's something that once you've kind of given it a couple listens, you can kind of go, oh yeah, let me listen to Saviors, because that's kind of neat.
I definitely
asked my son about it. I was like,
what'd your son think of it?
Go ahead, Chris.
No, I was gonna say I feel like I can already feel like I'm gonna go back and listen to other tracks. Like there are other songs that I feel like now that we're done with this, I definitely feel like I'll go back. Maybe not the whole thing all in a row, but I definitely know that I'm gonna go back and find certain songs.
Well, surprisingly enough, he didn't even know when I told him we were doing this episode. He's like, "Oh, he's like, he knew that the new album was out, but he hadn't listened to it, which I'm very surprised at." So. He digs it. He's like, yeah, it's very, he prefers the old stuff, pre American Idiot and back, like everything after American Idiot is not a fan of. But Dookie would probably be his second favorite. So cool. Yeah. So for him, it's like I said, it's like it recalls both of those records. But he really, he kind of, he's like, yeah. Good. Like that's, to me, that getting that out of him alone is enough. Like that's all he. Kids today, they're just like, there's no emotion there. It's just they're just kind of like
the one word.
Yeah, right. There's no excitement. It's just okay, whatever. Yeah. Cool.
That's my son.
You can't let on that you like the same music as your pop, right? You can't let on. It's like I can't let him know.
Yeah, whatever. He's got the phone going. But no, but he digs it. So I'm glad that he, and he would know probably more than I would what to look for, what the, like I said, the nuances of the band and what, what he likes and what appeals to him. So I'm, I'll ask him what the letter graded and I'll let you know.
All right.
So
Chris, I'm going to give you the last word before we wrap it up.
Absolutely.
Anything? What do you got?
No, nothing. I like I said, I dig the record. I think it definitely does harken back to all the things that make Green Day that made Green Day popular. And like I said, I feel like as of right now, I feel like it's something that I would go back and listen to again. Not something that, sometimes you get those new artists where you hear that one album, you hear the album, you play it through. I listen to their new album. You never think about it again. I don't feel like that's going to happen with this album at all.
Yeah. Cool. I think so too. I think there's, like you said, I think there's stuff I want to revisit kind of on Spotify like it. So it gets added to my playlist of stuff that kind of comes up. And I think it's going to be good. So that's going to do it for this episode of the 3324 podcast. The album is Saviors. The artist is Green Day. The year is 2024. They are back with a new album. We all dug it. So hit us up. Let us know on social media. We've got a Facebook group. You can let us know if you checked out Saviors, what you thought of it. Did it swing and a miss, or is it a hit? Let us know. If you're watching us on YouTube, you've heard our opinion now. So what did you think about it? Hit us up with with a comment, and definitely like the video and share it with people to get the conversation going. And
and if anybody can enlighten Dean or all of us actually as to how record sales are
calculated, let us
know. Calculated these days. Certainly let us know that too. So that'd be great.
So on that accounting note, that we're trying to figure out how these things work. We're still of the old ways. If you buy one at the store, you sold one. Anyway, we'll leave that conversation for another time. That's going to do it for Chris. Thank you very much, Chris, for joining us. We appreciate it.
As always. Pleasure, sir.
Thank you for having me again. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, you'll be back again. Don't worry. Probably like tomorrow.
All right, cool.
Tomorrow.
I'm down.
So for Chris and for Eric, this has been Dean, and we will see you on the flip side.